Welcome, I'm Olas Garjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. On March 31st, a presidential election took place in Ukraine. Showman Volodymyr Zelensky, current President Petro Poroshenko, and former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko are the top candidates according to the exit polls. During the national exit poll, around 17,000 respondents at 400 polling stations were polled using the secret ballot method. To talk more about the current results, we welcome to the studio today Svitlana Khutka, Research Director at the Social Indicators Center. Hello and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure to have you here again. So let's discuss the results, the numbers, right? So as I said, the exit polls closely reflect to the latest data of the Central Election Commission. So the results match at this point of time, yes. Right? Although one candidate, Yulia Tymoshenko, is accusing the national exit poll of public opinion manipulation. How could you comment on that?
Well, first of all, what we have is like the freedom of speech in our country. So, while under some frames, people may say what they want. But when it's coming to the quality of data we have, first of all these data, they are open. So anybody can actually check them. They will be delivered and hosted at the National Bank of Open Social Data. And also it's open to any audit, external, from public, from journalists, from experts who would love to check this data. Also, it's not our first exit poll. It's exit poll number 15, and all previous exit polls are also, they are open to public. And this is the only exit poll in Ukraine which is open to such audit. So you always can check quality.
So basically anyone has an access.
Yes, exactly.
To this data. Is there any feedback from the other candidates and also from the international observers about the accuracy and transparency of the exit poll?
Well, there are a lot of different reactions right now when it's about the exit poll, because when it's about the, such data, they are always politicized in media by politicians. And for sure, normally, those people who are okay with results, they would praise them, and who are not okay, they will try, somehow to demean the results. But in our case, they are very precise. Fluctuations we have, they are in frame of the sample error. So
what was this margin of error?
2.5 for the top leaders of the electoral run, and 0.5 to 1% to all other candidates. And as we can see, if compared to result of the Central Electoral Committee, they are super close. And normally the preciseness of our data is very, very high. And this is actually why we have such also high level of trust from our international donors. Because also what is important, our national exit poll, which is run by the consortium of Razumcon Center and Kyiv International Institute of Sociology with Foundation of Democratic Initiatives, it is supported not by politicians, but by international organizations. So we are out of any political influence in this case, and it's also one of the reasons why it has such a high level of trust.
And probably this margin of error is 2.5 because, as far as I understand, you couldn't physically include the poll stations located outside of Ukraine, right? We had 101 polling stations abroad, and also these special polling stations that are located in hospitals or in the detention centers. So this data was not included.
Partially not because of this. People who are voting at special polling stations, they are not included in the exit poll in general. And always when we are stating any result, declaring any results of exit poll before it will be run and after it, we actually are focused on this moment. So those 6% of people, 5–6% of people who are voting at the special polling stations, they are just not included into the exit poll in general. So when we are talking about the measurement error, it's about those people who were covered by the exit poll. So technically, there could be this difference, in results. But when we are talking about the sampling, sampling is covering only those people who are accessible.
I understand. Well, speaking of this first round of the presidential elections and the exit poll, we do know that Vladimir Zelensky is on the first place right now, then current President Petro Poroshenko and former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko. Just to remind our audience, is there an information available divided onto categories, for example, for every region, west, or is it a center of Ukraine, or is it an east of Ukraine? I mean, the information about voting depending on the location of residence of Ukraine.
Sure, we have such information, and I will be happy to share it with you here. So when we are talking about the Volodymyr Zelensky, so I will be presenting results shortly, and it will be divided by the such regions. It's Western Ukraine, Central Ukraine, South, and East. So when we're talking about the Volodymyr Zelensky, actually in Western Ukraine he got 21.8, Center 28.5, South 42.1, and East 31.0. Yeah, so he got 31%. Petro Poroshenko, acting president, in West 25.8, its center 19.3, South 11.4, and East 9.4.
So we see that the east of Ukraine supported Zelensky and the west of Ukraine supported
To some extent, yes, but I will go back to these results. So you will see that the balance is very interesting, actually. When we're talking about the Yulia Tymoshenko, she got in West 17.6, Center 17.4, and South 9.6, East 7.4. So what we have, for example, for Volodymyr Zelensky, let's take Center and East. At Center he got 29, and in East he got the 31. It's not that dramatical, you know, in terms of difference. While in South, you can see quite obvious difference, 42%. But again, if you would take West and Center, 29 and 22, well, it's so-so. So on average, it's more or less more balanced than for other candidates. Because in case of Petro Poroshenko, we obviously may see that West and Center, it's kind of more about his electoral field, and same case for Yulia Tymoshenko. But if, for example, you would jump to some other candidates like Boyko, you will see obviously that he has this disbalance. So he is more about South and Eastern candidates and so on. So it's very interesting. If you would jump, for example, to the structure of would be countryside or cities, Yulia Tymoshenko have more voters and supporters in rural area than in urban areas, and Petro Poroshenko has more supporters in, for example, urban area. And again, it's about the age structure as well. Volodymyr Zelensky has more supporters among younger people. And for example, Yulia Tymoshenko, she had more supporters among the more senior people. And Petro Poroshenko was kind of, more balanced.
Supported by adults. So to say.
Yeah, by adults and less by youngsters.
This is very interesting. Is there any data? Why do people select a certain candidate? What do believe in? Do they believe in personality, or do they believe in the election campaign of the certain candidate?
Well, before the elections, at the end of March, we run a study, Kyiv International Institute of Sociology and Razumkov Center together. So we were asking people what would be the motives, what would be the reasoning behind their choice. And actually, quite often, main reasons why they select specific person would be how close are ideas the candidate would declare in his program, and also what he offers to do in future as politician who could win, how attractive is a politician as personality, if he has any relevant strategy and decent strategy of strategical development of country for future, and also if he is able to provide peace at Donbass. for sure.
So this is one of the main issues for people, of course.
Yeah. And also how candidates see the economic development of country. So at least for Khutka of country, it's important to know what would be the, economical matters which are important for their candidates. So also what is very interesting, during the last several months, if compared with August 2018 to the March of 2019, what became really important to people, it's also how they see the impact of corruption. So this, what is called compromise, some information about maybe corruption among the candidates and so on. It influenced also decision of people, and it became more important, while in these 6 months before the start of election. Yeah.
Yes, people definitely are tired of corruption throughout all the state institutions in Ukraine, and not only state institutions. But speaking of the exit polls, as we have the topic of this interview, could you please tell us about the process of polling itself?
Yeah, normally you have, in our case, each company has 200, altogether 400 of polling stations we had interviewers at, and also each country, each company had 200. So altogether it was 400. And 19,431 respondents were actually polled.
So even more than you expected, because
we expected like about 1,700, but actually what we got is 19,400 plus who were polled at 400 of polling stations. And methodology of secret ballot was used, because you give a box to a person and the ballot where he can write down or she can write down the choice which were made at the polling station. So interviewer doesn't see actually normally what is the answer. So it's anonymous, it's confident, and it's quite reliable way to get answers, because then people are more open to answer.
Of course.
Yeah.
How did Ukrainians react to the exit polls interviewers?
Quite positively. This time we were expecting, actually, based on our previous experience, maybe something may happen. And
some kind of violence or some kind of aggressive behavior?
Maybe some aggression behavior, maybe some issues with security. But all was very positive.
So you don't have any incident of any kind of violence or aggression, so to say?
No.
Great.
It was really great. The only incident was maybe that at some polling station in rural area, the leader of the electoral committee, he was not sure if it is allowed to run exit polls, but very shortly this misunderstanding was solved. So this was maybe the only issue actually which happened so far. But in general, it was very clear, very transparent. And we had a lot of journalists who visited also our working stations here at Kiev, where we were gathering all the results from different regions. And this was maybe one of the most, calm and interesting exit polls if you're talking about the results also and about the process.
This is very positive. And the very last question to ask, because we unfortunately ran out of time, around this 400 polling stations, how often did people refuse to participate in the exit poll?
Not really that often. Actually...
Or maybe we can compare this with the previous experiences, so the audience has some kind of idea whether people are more open or less open.
We have data that actually this time less than 1% of people
was refusing to provide information.
Were refusing, or for example damaging the ballot they got or something like this in exit poll. So technically it was not the number which should be some reason for concern.
Do you remember how it used to be before?
It was a bit higher level of refusals, but this time Somehow it happened that all was in very positive atmosphere.
So this is the calmest and the most peaceful exit poll in Ukraine's history.
I would say so.
This is a great conclusion for our conversation and great comment. Thank you so much for being a guest today in our studio.
Thank you so much for having me here.
That was Svitlana Khutka, Research Director at the Social Indicators Center. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Gerjuk. Goodbye.